And good afternoon once again to Bloomberg Opinion Editorial Board Conversations. I'm your host, Robert George. And joining us once again is my esteemed colleague, Tim Lavin. Tim, this week we had sort of an unusual walk back from one of the large tech firms. Facebook had previously announced the creation of a new program called Instagram Youth, which I'm going to show. I'm going to be showing my age by saying it reminded me of Debbie Gibson's Electric Youth from about 30 years ago, but it's something very, very different. What was Instagram Youth, and why did Facebook et al. Decide to put a pause on the unveiling of it?
Right. So Instagram Youth, it was a part of a series of projects that Facebook had been working on, attempting to lure younger and younger users to its various platforms and products. The basic idea was that it would be an Instagram-like service targeted at 9, 10, 11, 12-year-olds. According to the company's public statements, it would not collect any data on these kids. There'd be no advertising, etc. But it was generally a way to try to onboard younger kids into Facebook's product universe. This is sort of part of a broader arms race, for lack of a better term, in the industry, where you have Facebook is losing market share among younger users to platforms like Snapchat and TikTok and so on. And so they're quite concerned about this. Kids associate Facebook with something their grandparents do with pictures or whatever. So Instagram Youth was part of that. The last week there were a series of articles in the Wall Street Journal showing that Facebook's internal research team had found that a lot of teenagers were self-reporting that they felt that Instagram was causing various mental health issues in terms of depression, anxiety, eating, body image issues, and so on. So there was quite a bit of pressure on Facebook to cancel Instagram Youth after those pieces came out. There were a lot of people in Congress that started demanding that they stop Instagram Youth, and so they did. Well, they announced this week that they're going to put the project on pause. So we'll see where it goes from there. Their head of global safety is before a Senate subcommittee today, I think, as we speak, still being lambasted by various senators. So we'll see where it goes from here. But that's the short version of what Instagram Youth was.
What's the status quo in the context of Instagram? What is the what's the minimum age that you're allowed to set up an Instagram account?
Well, it's 13, technically. Facebook has conceded quite publicly that they know that tons of kids under age 13 are using the platform by lying about their age. This is a twofold problem. One, it's illegal to knowingly collect data on kids under age 13 without their parents' permission. Facebook has found various ways to get around that law, but that is the law, so that should be a concern. The other was, rather audaciously, they used this as a rationale for launching Facebook Youth, saying, well, yeah, we have all these kids on the service, we're lying anyway, maybe we'll just create a new one targeted just for them. But I think what bothered a lot of people, and particularly in Congress, was Facebook had done this internal research. They knew their product was causing harm for some subset of their users, potentially quite severe harm, and yet their solution to this problem, at least publicly so far, has been to launch something intended for much younger kids. And I think that really bothered a lot of people.
Understandably so. Are we possibly seeing we've been seeing for several months now, maybe several years now, criticism of big tech from the left and the right. Are we about a turning point on whether there may be some consensus on the need for more regulation, particularly on the social media front?
I think so. Both parties hate the tech companies, but for very different reasons. And this is one reason that they seem to agree on, is children. And it's a very difficult thing to regulate. For one, you've got First Amendment issues. For another, there are various technical issues that are not that are difficult to get around. So I have some sympathy there. It's difficult to come up with a legislative solution to protect kids, but I do think there is quite a lot of bipartisan support now behind some more stringent regulations, whether it means increasing those protections for kids under 13 to kids up to 15, 16, that kind of thing, whether it's mandating parental controls that are easier to use, that kind of thing. There are a lot of bills that have been circulating in recent years trying to get a handle on this problem. So I think you're right. It does look like an increasingly bipartisan concern.
You're a parent. You've got a 3 and 5-year-old, I believe. So far that seems to be even below where Facebook and so forth are targeting. But what kind of conversations are you having with with fellow parents in terms of figuring out protections on social media, and obviously not just from use, but from kids being targeted and so forth. What are those conversations like?
Yeah, every parent's worried about this. Every parent's worried about screen time, about what their kids are doing online. It's not as easy as you'd think to monitor these things. I mean, you have to put really a lot of effort into staying on top of this. And a lot of the parents, whether both parents are working and they're very busy, and it's very easy to put a tablet in front of a kid and let them do their thing. But I think it's a universal worry among parents, and it was that way before these companies started targeting younger and younger users. I think as a society, we put rings around children in all kinds of contexts. There's a reason that we have ratings for movies and a drinking age and a smoking age, and 13-year-old can't wander into a casino and start playing craps. We've never quite figured out how to put that sort of ring fence around children online. Partly because all this stuff is still quite new. It's still only a couple of generations that have been living with it. Partly because it's a technical challenge. But I do think that there is a growing concern among parents at all age levels, of all socioeconomic backgrounds, that they are worried about it. You can see how these things affect your teenagers. Facebook has been, at pains to note that the academic research and how social media affects kids is all over the map, and I think they're right. But parents looking at how it affects their kid, they know that there's a problem, and they know that there are many, many other potential problems, and you see other kids who have problems. And so I do think you see a bit of a groundswell right now, and I think that this might be something of a tipping point.
There've been, I think, I think maybe Senator Markey may be taking the lead on this, and there've been a number of other senators have actually made the claim that Facebook's responses on some of these questions remind them actually of how big tobacco tried to duck responsibility for decades for people smoking. Is that one more is that one more element that is going to sort of lead to a bipartisan reckoning against not just Facebook, but some of the other big tech companies as well?
Well, the tobacco analogy, I think, is overwrought, probably by design, which is fine. That's what you do in Congress.
Well, we are talking about politicians, right?
Right. Facebook is not big tobacco. The big tobacco knew for decades just how addictive and harmful their products were, and they interfered.
And Facebook doesn't know how addictive it is. No.
Well, this is what I'm trying to get at. Tobacco products were killing people, and the companies were covering up legitimate scientific research showing exactly that. Facebook, honestly, I give Facebook credit for hiring a team of researchers and asking them to do this. Not every platform does that. They should. But hiring a team like this is costly, and it's almost certain to dig up things that you don't want to hear. And it sort of defies the incentive structure within the company for somebody to put their hand up and say, "Look, we're harming these people." So that's a caveat. I do want to not applaud them, but say that that was the right thing to do. The other thing is Mark Zuckerberg is right when he says there's not conclusive research that connects mental illness and social media. There are a lot of very suggestive studies. If I were in charge of that company, I would be terrified about what these studies are suggesting, if not definitively showing, about how teens' mental health is being affected by these platforms. But they're not killing anybody yet. So yes, Facebook was aware that there was a problem. The study that they conducted was not entirely scientific. There was no diagnoses of these kids saying that they had depression or anxiety. These are self-reported. So I can see there were a lot of reasons that Facebook might not have published this research. But that said, it had a gigantic red flag. When you see your products causing a problem like that, your reaction simply can't be great. Let's create a version for 9-year-olds. I mean, that's an insane thing to do. And I think they quite rightly caught a lot of flack for that. And like I said, this does seem to be a bit of a tipping point when it comes to kids and social media.
Now, we point out the reason why they were pivoting in this direction is because they've been losing the youth share, or part of the youth share, to Snapchat and TikTok. What are the concerns that the public and parents in particular should have about those products, which TikTok obviously was was major controversies over the last couple of years, partly because of their Chinese ownership and so forth. But aren't these addictive and body image issues? Aren't those questions to be raised with them as well?
Well, like I said, yes, but like I said, there are no definitive answers to are these social media platforms causing body image issues and so forth. But if you're a parent and your kid's staying out all night and coming home at 5 o'clock in the morning, you don't wait for a peer-reviewed study to tell you if something's wrong. You know something's wrong. And a lot of parents look at how their kids are reacting to this and how it does become, addictive is a loaded word, but you see how compelling it is for them. And it's a very, very deep concern for them. So yeah, like I said, I applaud Facebook for actually taking the initiative here and researching this stuff. Whereas I have no idea if TikTok is doing the same. By the looks of it, they're not. There's a lot of harmful content on TikTok that kids are very easily accessing. So like I was trying to say before, I think this is a point where society needs to start thinking about what guardrails we're going to impose on social media when it comes to children. I think in some ways this is the easiest answer, because all the other problems we have with social media are things that consenting adults are doing, to each other. You should be able to find a consensus of sort of baseline protections for what kids should be doing and not be doing online. And I think if you talk to a lot of tech people in Silicon Valley, there's this sort of air of inevitability that, of course, 11-year-olds are going to end up on social media. I'm not sure that as a society we necessarily need to concede that. I think there are a lot of guardrails that we should start thinking about. And honestly, I have zero sympathy for Facebook. I'm not a knee-jerk critic of theirs by any means. But when it comes to this stuff, I have zero sympathy. Stay away from kids. It doesn't seem that hard to me.
Is there more that the social media companies themselves could do in terms of perhaps creating products that might help stem some of the ill effects of regular Instagram, rather than, as you said, trying to speak directly to the younger kids, create programs that can either address some of the body image issues or the mental health issues. Is there any kind of research that they should be pursuing, to alleviate the bad, rather than just expanding on the line?
There is, and again, Facebook, to its credit, is doing that, and other social media platforms should be doing the same. Excuse me. It's difficult. The Facebook's immediate reaction for the Instagram thing is they've sort of tinkered with various rudimentary changes to their interface, trying to make it easier for teens to change what they're viewing and how they're interacting with the service, that kind of thing. I mean, that's really kind of rinky-dink stuff. I don't think that's going to change the inherent problem. The inherent problem is, we know what social media does to our brains. I think people feel it. And again, we don't have definitive studies on this stuff, but I think it is time that these companies take a lot more responsibility for it, invest a lot more in that kind of technology, and maybe Congress and as a society, we start thinking about much more stringent limits when it comes to kids and teenagers.
As we finish
up,
Robert? No, I'm still here. Anyway, well, let's.
I think we are having technical issues, so I will leave it there.
We're going to finish it off. We're going to finish it off right there. Tim Lavin, thank you once again. I'm Robert George.